We are joined by Trevor Bayne, who is a native of Knoxville and the driver of the number 6 Advocare Ford. Welcome home, Trevor. I'm sure it's pretty special to get to race here at Bristol, and you're bringing a pretty solid start to the 2017 season back home here. So what does it mean to be able to race here at Bristol?
Yeah, well, as you guys know, this is the place that made me a NASCAR fan and made me want to do what I do. So it's obviously a special place for me. Love racing here. And even if I wasn't from Knoxville, I would love this racetrack. It's just really fun, and we've been successful here. So that always makes it more fun when you're fast and can run well. I think the last 3 races we've had top 15s and a top 5 in this race last year. So with the performance gains we've made so far this season, I'm really looking forward to getting on the track and seeing if those gains relate to Bristol as well.
We will open up to questions for Trevor. Please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless mic to you. We'll start here with Jeff.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Trevor, I'm kind of wondering about the VHT with the on and off rain that's expected throughout the weekend. How do you know how much you'll be able to trust it when you get in race conditions?
Yeah, when I got here today and walked down the racetrack and saw how black it was, I was almost concerned it's too rubbered up. You know, sometimes at these racetracks, when rubber gets down throughout the weekend, the track slows down. So it's pretty excessive. I don't know. I'm excited to get on the racetrack and see. Obviously, the only thing I've seen so far are the K&N cars, and they're using it. You know, if I look at last year's race, I feel like it was a big benefit for the first 15 laps of a run. But as your tires fell off and you couldn't go to the gas as hard as you wanted to on exit, you moved up and tried to get the runs on exit just like you would a mile and a half. If that is the case, if it's useful for that again, I would be totally pumped and content about that, but we won't know till we get out there. And like you said, with the rain, you think about road course races. When moisture gets in the air, you kind of run offline a little bit. You don't want to be on the rubber. So I don't know how the chemical reacts to water, but I know how rubber reacts, and there's a lot of rubber down there. So I'm looking forward to practice to kind of feel that out. I do know, you know, last year in practice, it was really fast, and everybody practiced down there, and then you got to the race and you wish you had worked on your car on the top a little bit more. So for us, again, I think I'll probably run down on it if it's fast for 15 laps or so. But even if our lap times aren't as quick, I still have to force myself to run the middle, run the top, work on my car where we know we're going to race at.
We'll go to Jim, right next to Jeff.
Jim Utter, motorsport.com. We were talking to Ricky last week, and we were talking about how the last couple seasons you guys have been hopeful because you started off better, but then it didn't sustain through the whole season. He seemed to think that this year you guys had turned that corner and that it might be able to sustain. Do you feel the same way about your team?
Well, I think it's different this year. Last year we saw some success, but it was inconsistent. You know, one weekend I might be fast, the next maybe Greg or maybe Ricky, but we weren't always consistent. We couldn't run door to door every race. It was kind of like one of us got lucky and hit a lucky setup and had a decent car build, and we went and we ran well. But if I look at last weekend at Texas, what happened in practice when I crashed the primary last year and in years past, I would have thought, well, we're done. You know, the backup's going to be terrible. We just got lucky and the primary was fast. But we're actually building fast race cars now. They're building them with that intention, and it actually works. You know, every car has been fast. Ricky and I have finished door to door almost every weekend, so we're able to consistently do that, and I think that's what makes us hopeful. It's not like we went to California and Texas with low grip and said, okay, we were pretty fast there, now we're going to have this false hope that we're going to be good everywhere. I think, you know, Martinsville was a huge gain for us, that we were both able to run in the top 10 at parts of the race. We've been terrible there in the past, so to see us on a flat racetrack have speed, and I think the other part of it isn't just the result at the end of the day, but it's what's happening at the race shop. It's what's happening in our culture and our communication. You know, a lot of the same people are there, the talented people that we've always had, but we're actually using them as valuable resources now. I feel like we're using their knowledge. We're able to tap into that. The way we're functioning as a living, breathing organism as a race team, we're doing well together, and that's what's making the difference, you know. Nobody got smarter over the off season. We just figured out, and we're still figuring out, how to work better together, how to hold each other accountable without feeling like you're pointing the finger at everybody else and saying, hey, it's your fault that we're not running good. We're holding each other to a high standard, you know, and as I've said before, focusing on results, saying we need to be running top 10 doesn't get you a result. You focus on the small things that you do every week that equal that result, and I think we're doing a better job at that. So, you know, as long as we continue to develop As long as our engineers stay hungry and we don't get content with top 15 place finishes, because those become 20th later in the season, as long as we stay hungry and build on what we've already learned and stay to our goals, I think we're seeing our goals we're pretty good. We hit those goals and we're seeing results. So if we continue to hit those goals, our potential is going to stay where it's at or get better throughout the season, and that's what we're excited about.
We'll come over here to Lee.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. When you got to Roush Fenway Racing, they were pretty much at the pinnacle. Being a person of faith as you are, how have you used that to deal with what's going on there? And I mean, it's like when things can't get any worse and your teammate takes you out accidentally. I mean, it's silly stuff like that. I mean, how do you dig deep and attempt to persevere?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we're a results-based, I mean, that's what we do, right? We're all about results in racing, but for me, obviously, as you mentioned, like my contentment comes from my faith, and this is a job I have, so I want to do well at it, though. I feel like God's given me ability, given me opportunity, and then given me a work ethic, and I have to use all those the best that I can. But at the end of the day, I can't control everything, right? And if I can leave the racetrack and say, man, I prepared as hard as I could, I was as fit as I could be, I feel like I nailed every corner that I could nail, I did great on pit road, and I did all those things 100%, and we finished 20th, well, that's all I had that day, and I've got to be okay with that. But now the days when I make mistakes and crash my teammate or do things that, you know, I didn't prepare all the way, or I fell out of the seat because I was tired, well, I needed to be doing more. And for me, I think that's what helps you on those tough days when all you have is a 20th place race car, but you know that you're doing everything that you can. You just got to be okay with that and keep pushing your teammates, you know, pushing my crew chief, pushing my engineers to get more potential in the car. And that's what we're doing now. I'm still not fixated on what is the end of the day result. I'm not fixated on, is it 13th, is it 5th, is it a win? I'm fixated on doing my job the best that I can. And hopefully that equals wins and equals top fives. But my faith has definitely played a huge role in that, me being able to be content in that. But I'm not going to lie, it's been tough at times. You know, when I first got to Roush, if you didn't qualify in the top 10, all their cars, I mean, it was a bad day. If you didn't run in the top 10, it was a bad day. And we kind of lost that for a little while. But I feel like last weekend at Texas, you know, we're kind of back to that standard. You know, I'm watching the pylon in qualifying, and Ricky and I are able to jump up, and, you know, we're mildly concerned with making the second round in qualifying. You know, we feel like we should do that every weekend, whereas last year it was like, oh man, we made second round at times, and now the concern is third round. So, you know, you just keep firing away, you keep coming back hungry, and I know this is where God's put me, so I can't let results beat me down, I guess, at the end of the day, and just stay fired up, stay hungry for it. Yes, ma'am.
We'll go to Bob and then Jeff and Chris.
Bob Hockers, ESPN. Does the fact that you have confidence in your cars help you on a weekend like this where who knows how much practice you're going to get?
Yeah, I mean, especially since it's Bristol where we've had success, as you and I talked this morning. You know, last year Ricky had a second place, I had a fifth place, so we know we have a decent starting package. The track hasn't changed, the cars haven't changed that much, you know, as far as loads and setups are concerned. So no practice, I feel like we would still be pretty close. You know, we have a good baseline to go off of. That gives you confidence. And as I said, I'm really kind of anxious to get on racetrack to see what kind of speed we have and see what our cars are like, because we have made so many gains at all the racetracks this year. And if last year we were a fifth place car, I'm wondering, are we going to be capable of, you know, winning a race here this weekend? I don't know the answer to that yet because I haven't been on track, but that is in the back of my mind right now that, man, if we've made the same gains here at Bristol that we've made everywhere else, then we could be a contender.
We'll go to Jeff and then to Chris.
At Texas, when you crashed the primary car, you were really down and disappointed and said it was like the best car you'd ever had. What happens like immediately after that? Do you just go up to the team and say, you know, hey, I'm sorry? Like, do you have to go out of your way to be like extra sorry? Like, what does a driver do in that situation?
Well, that's a fine line. You know, for me, you've got to move on, but if you move on too quickly, it looks like you don't care that you just crashed the team's race car and their hard work. And if you beat yourself up all day, then you're no good to the team either. So I think what happened was, as soon as I crashed, you know, I'm like, dang, man, I just crashed the fastest race car I've ever had. I'm in the infield care center because they force you to go, and I'm looking at the TV and I see the backup rolling out of the trailer, and I'm like, this is terrible. I just feel awful for my guys. But what's nice is that my team right now, the way that, like I said, the culture, communication, we are a team. So if my pit crew messes up one time on pit road, I'm not going off on them, you know what I mean? And when I crash the primary car at Texas, when we're at the top of the board, they don't come in and say, you stink. Like, we have trust in each other, confidence, and we know that we're pushing that limit. I mean, we were top of the board partially because I was moving the groove out into turn one and finally took too big of a chunk. So they know I'm pushing 100%, and, mistakes are going to happen, but I would say I'm pretty hard on myself for those mistakes. That's one of those things, like I was telling Lee, when I rate myself at the end of the day, it's based off of how did I execute, not the end of the day result. And so that mistake is on that checklist I go through. And, but I think you just, you're frustrated, you show it, then you come in, your team's like, all right, man, let's go. And you got to pick yourself up and move on. But what really helped me overcome that was the fact that my team got a backup car out of the hauler, got it on the racetrack in 25 minutes. I mean, that is impressive. For us to crash in a 50-minute practice, get 2 more runs on the racetrack, I was laughing. One of the 11 guys, Denny's team, came over and he's like, man, if that happened to us, we'd be hoping we were on the track tomorrow. So the confidence that built for my team to know that we're doing the right things. I think it's maybe my second backup car in 3 years, so it's not like they were expecting to use it, but they were still prepared. And preparing for the unknowns is what's going to make you successful, and they're doing that well.
We're going to go to Chris and then to Dustin.
Chris Knight, catchfence.com. Hey, Trevor, I was just curious your thoughts on moving the Cup race from night to day in Charlotte in the fall.
I love Saturday races. It's an extra day at home. So I love night racing and Saturday races, but you know what? I'll be at the racetrack whatever day and whatever time they tell me to be. I'm a fan of Saturday night races all the time for the pure fact that we get that extra day. But other than that, the racing's fine. The fans, if it draws a bigger crowd or better TV, then I'm all for it. And Marcus and the guys at SMI know what they're doing, so I fully trust that they're making good decisions. But I'm sure there's already been enough opinions about Saturday versus Sunday, and I'll just get my schedule when I get it and show up at the racetrack. To me, as far as the actual racing, it doesn't, kind of, okay, if we race at night, my car needs to drive like this in practice. If we race during the day, my car needs to drive like this, and you make those adjustments. It's obviously less grip during the day. You slide around a little more. So I think, the biggest thing that will happen is if it's a day race, you may see the top come in a little bit more. If it's a night race, the bottom is 100% going to be the way to go. So you think about that as you go into the weekend. You think about, do I need to work on the bottom, the top? Does my car need to be tight, loose at the end of practice? And you just go from there.
Can we go to Dustin?
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. You obviously got your first win with the Wood brothers. Elliott Sadler got his first win with the Wood brothers. Ryan Blaney seems like he could be on target to do that. As you kind of gain perspective, what does it mean to be a part of the fraternity of drivers that have won at the Wood brothers, and what's it like to see what they've done? Because you've seen the good and the struggles that they've gone through.
Well, you're right about gaining perspective. I think every race, every year, I appreciate what we did even more. I see how tough it is and how I just kind of showed up as this 20-year-old kid and thought, oh man, this is how it's going to be. And then you realize how tough it can be at times. So I feel super blessed and fortunate to have had that and to have done it with the Wood brothers. I mean, that's a special family. And for the fact that they've stayed in the sport, stayed relevant in the sport and competitive, it's a huge testimony to who they are as people and what they've done as a family. I mean, they aren't a huge corporation organization. It's still very much run by Leonard, Eddie, and Lynn, and even Glenn. He's still out going strong. So those guys are incredible people. Their whole family, their wives and kids and everybody that's involved, they've managed to stay relevant in a sport that requires huge organizations to do that. So, that's why drivers like myself have had opportunities to win in their cars. They always find a way, and with the help of Ford, to be in the right partnerships, their partnership with Roush and then now their partnership with Penske. They've got good equipment, and, you're right, Ryan Blaney's been super fast this year. As he continues to learn as a driver, as I continue to learn as a driver, they have the speed. They've just got to put together the full race, and whether it's pit road things or whatever it might be, you can't avoid wins when you're fast. They just happen. And I think that those guys are on the path to that for sure. And I'm happy for the Woods. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Daytona 500. I mean, there's just certain things that you get to experience as a person, and to be a part of that group that has helped the Wood Brothers to win in every decade, and to, have that relationship with them. I mean, Eddie and Lynn still talk about it with me to this day, what that meant for them. And so, man, there aren't many things in life that you still talk about 6 years later and 7 years or 10 years later, like we will be. And for us to have had that experience together, and to, like you said, it's a fraternity with a lot of guys who won in that race car. So, and not just guys that have won with the Wood Brothers, but won Cup races. I mean, obviously I hope to continue in my Cup career and go and win a lot of races, but to be in that group of drivers that have won Cup races and to have done it with the Wood Brothers is really special. Yes, sir.
Any final questions? In the middle?
Trevor, Adam Niemeyer with Fox TV in Cincinnati. A quick question for you. I know Michael and Annette mentioned something earlier. I've seen guys send out pictures on social media. How much do you guys like to go back and watch prior races and watch film to study, kind of like in other sports where guys watch film to prepare?
Yeah, preparation is a huge part of my week and weekend. It's something that as a young driver I kind of took for granted. I tried to do all this on natural ability, and you realize really fast when you get to this level that everybody's got natural ability and you got to work pretty hard at it. So I feel like this year is the most systematic I've been in that approach, with notes and with Dartfish videos, which are the overlays from past races, and with watching full races. In my training, I have a lot of time indoors in the gym or on a spin bike or on a treadmill, and I kind of have it playing, or I'll go through and today I went back and watched both races again quickly, skipping through to certain parts. But it's really important to do that, to know what you're going into. Just like earlier when I was talking about, it seemed like 15 laps you could run on the bottom and then you had to move to the top in the last race. Things like that you forget in 6 months or a year. When we go back to these racetracks, you would think we would remember everything, but I can't remember where I qualified or finished the last race. I kind of have to go online and look and see how I did. So, I really, it's important for me to go back through my notes, and it's important right after the race to take good notes. A lot of times you think, I'll remember that when I come back, and you don't write it down, and you get back and you don't remember it till about halfway through the race. And so for me, note taking has been really important after the race. Some drivers probably laugh at all this stuff I'm saying, like, you don't need to do any of that. But I'm under the impression that if there's something out there that can give me an advantage at all, then I'm going to use that to the best that I can.
All right, Trevor, well, thanks for joining us this afternoon, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you guys for having me.